Good morning, friends. I am Captain Dr. D.K. Ramawat, working as a consultant cardiologist at Ramawat Heart and General Medicine Hospital, Badmer, Rajasthan, India. Last time in last CME, we have taken interventional balloon mitral valvoplasty, and today again we are taking interventional chapter, that is interventional transcutaneous aortic valve implantation. I have simplified it and I am 100% sure that you will understand and you will like it. So let us take transcutaneous aortic valve implantation. So here we are with the transcatheter aortic valve implantation. Regarding introduction, in elderly patient more than 75 years, aortic valve stenosis is one of the most common acquired valvular disease with a prevalence of 3.4% of severe aortic valve stenosis. It is characterized by an insidious course with a long latent period followed by rapid progression to symptoms of what? Symptoms of breathlessness, chest pain and syncope. And the prognosis is very poor once symptoms occur. The average survival of patients who experience angina is 5 years, and person who has experienced syncope is 3 years, and a person who is having heart failure, he will only survive for 2 years respectively. Larger number of patients, 30 to 40%, denied surgery due to their advanced age, impaired LV systolic dysfunction and coexisting comorbidities that increases perioperative cardiovascular risk. Now we are going for the second point, transcatheter aortic valve implantation. In 2002, the first in man non-surgical aortic valve implantation was performed by Alan Cabir using a transseptal antegrade approach and balloon expandable aortic valve prosthesis. In 2012, TAVI, the transcatheter aortic valve implantation or percutaneous aortic valve implantation, was adopted in the European Society of Cardiology and European Association for Cardiothoracic Surgery guidelines, and their guidelines was very nice, and as a treatment for severe symptomatic aortic valve stenosis in patients with high surgical risk. Since 2012, TAVI has been performed in more than 50,000 patients worldwide, and a number of different aortic prostheses have since been developed. In third point, we are going to tell you types of percutaneous aortic valves. The Edward Sapin and Corval Medtronic are the valves with the most clinical experience and published data to date. More recently, many more valves also received confirmed European approval, which are shown in figure 1 and 2 and table 1 and 2 in next slide. So here you can say this is your Edward Sapin valve and this is your Corval Medtronic, and in newer generations valve approved by confirmed European is Evolutar, Sapin 3, Lotus valve, Portico and Zana valve. Now you can see the characteristic of new generation valves approved by confirmed European. Now there are five valves we are discussing. The Evolut R is porcine, there is a pig tissue. Then Sapin 3 is the bovine, that is from the cow pericardium. Then the Lotus is again bovine, the cow pericardium. then portico again moving the cow pericardium, and the Zana wall is the porcine, that is from the tissue of the pig. And you see the evolute R is self-expandable, sapien 3 is balloon expandable, lotus is mechanical expandable, and portico is self-expandable, Zana wall is self-expandable, and annulus range is in evolute R 18 to 29 millimeter, sapien 3 18 to 28 millimeter, and lotus 19 to 27 millimeter, and portico 18 to 25 millimeter, and Zana valve is having 21 to 27 millimeter of the annulus. Then the location of the wall, evolute R, it is supraannular placed, then sapien 3 intraannular placed, then lotus intraannular placed, then portico placed intraannular, and Zana valve also intraannular. And the route which we are adopting in evolute R and retrograde, in sapien 3 antegrade and retrograde, in lotus retrograde, and portico retrograde, and in Zana valve both antegrade and retrograde we are using. And in sapien 3 actually rapid passing was adopted. And now I would like to tell you the results of Edward Sapien and Medtronic core wall. You see, in Edward Sapien, 2 trials were taken, cohort A and cohort B. In trial A, there were 248 patients. In trial B, there were 178 patients. And in trial A, the stroke was 5.5%, and in trial B was 6.7% stroke. This is within 30 days. In 30 days, we see the stroke 5.5 and 6.7. In the same way, within 30 days, we are seeing in trial A, this new permanent pacemaker were applied 3.8%, and in trial B, permanent pacemaker were applied for 3.4%. Then there was aortic regurgitation of more than grade 2. That was only in trial 1, that is 12.5%. The mortality rate in trial 1, trial A, it was 3.4%, and in trial B it was 5%. Then if we go to Medtronic core wall, again there 2 trials were taken. In trial 1, the patients number was 996, in second trial patients were 471. And stroke was seen in trial A 3%, and in trial B 2.4%. And new permanent pacemaker were applied in trial A 26.4%, and in trial B 22.2%. Then the grades, more than 2 grade aortic regurgitation was seen in trial 1 13%, in trial 2 11.5%. The mortality rate, it was in Medtronic trial 1 4.5%, and in trial 2 7.9%. Then the patient selection. Due to the complex condition of high-risk patients, the final clinical decision for an individual patient to be suitable for undergoing aortic valve replacement and transcatheter aortic valve implantation and medical treatment. These all the 3 treatment relies on multidisciplinary heart team discussion. And heart team consists of interventional cardiologists, cardiac surgeons, and other involved specialists. Then the European Society of Cardiology guidelines is individual case should be discussed within a multidisciplinary heart team and should only be performed in hospitals with cardiac surgery on site. Then the anatomical factors which are involved, several anatomic evolutions specific to transcatheter aortic valve implantation are necessary. For that, non-invasive evaluation of the aortic annulus dimensions with transesophageal echocardiography, magnetic resonance imaging and multi-detector computed tomography should be carried out in order to select the optimum valve size. And arterial access is assessed how? With angiography or contrast multi-detector computerized tomography. Then evaluation of aorta is done how? It is done with angiography or contrast multi-detector computed tomography. And this is done for what purpose? For delivery and implantation of the specific valve type and to see the aortic root, to see the calcification around the aortic root and see the coronary obstruction. Now we are supposed to know optimum timing of the surgery in aortic stenosis, whether the patient is asymptomatic or symptomatic and having atrial stenosis. Then first point should be peak aortic velocity should be more than 4 meters per second, and you know normally is 1 to 1.7 only. Aortic valve area should be less than 0.8 centimeter square per meter square and normally is 2.5 to 3.5. And mean gradient should be more than 40 millimeter of the mercury. Now this is regarding aortic stenosis. What about aortic regurgitation? CVAT, first we should know what is the CVAT. CVAT of aortic regurgitation according to the width of the aortic regurgitation Z. If it is grade 1, then Z width occupying less than 25% of LVOT area. If LVOT area occupies less than 25% of, if Z width occupies less than 25% of LVOT area, then it is grade 1 AR. If Z occupies 25 to 50% of LVOT area, then it is grade 2 AR. If it occupies 50 to 65% of the LVOT, then this is third grade. If ARZ occupies more than 65% of LVOT area, then this is grade 4. Now we are going to take what is the optimum timing of surgery in aortic regurgitation. Earlier we have seen optimum timing of surgery in aortic stenosis, but here we will see optimum timing of surgery and aortic regurgitation. So there should be left ventricular and systolic dimension more than 55 millimeter and normally is 23 to 39. And left ventricular and systolic volume index should be more than 55 ml per meter square and normally is 48 only. Then left ventricular and diastolic volume index should be more than 200 ml per meter square and normally is 120 ml only. And left ventral ejection fraction should be less than 50% and normally is 55 to 73%. And declining ejection fraction more than 2% even when it is in normal range. Then systolic dysfunction on exercise should be definite and should be reproducible. Now the clinical factors. In view of advanced age, 70 years or older, and comorbidities are found out before selection of case of TAVI, and after TAVI, function and survival benefits are to be assessed. Patient selection. It is done by surgical risk score. Number 1, Euroscore. Number 2, Society of Thoracic Surgeons Mortality Score. It could be helpful, but in general not accurate to predict prognosis after TAVI. Predicting outcome and optimum patient selection may be helped by multidimensional genetic evaluation. Now I am going to take a very important point cardiac stratification of aortic stenosis based on the extent of cardiac damage. There are 4 stages of the aortic stenosis. In stage 0, no cardiac damage. This is LV, this is LA, left atria, this is left ventricle, right atrium and right ventricle. You see in stage 1 there is LV damage. You can see enlargement of the LV in first stage from the baseline. So this is damage to the LV. Here increased LV mass index will be seen. Means more than 115 gram per meter square in male and more than 95 gram per meter square in female is seen. And EA ratio will be more than 14. This E is actually mitral inflow velocity. And this is small e is tissue Doppler mitral annulus velocity. So mitral inflow velocity and tissue Doppler mitral annulus velocity, we take the ratio, and this ratio should be more than 14. Then we can judge that there is LV damage. Then LV ejection fraction is less than 50% because LV damage. Stage 2, LA or mitral wall damage. Here you see mitral wall is damaged and left atria is damaged. Here left atrial size was this much, but here it is so much. So left atrial size is increased due to damage, and this is the regurgitation of the mitral wall. Blood, in spite of going forward to the left ventricle, it is coming back to the left atrium. You see here you will find left atrial or mitral wall damage. Index left atrial volume should be more than 34 ml per meter square. Then it is considered LA damage. Then moderate to severe mitral regurgitation should be seen. This is regurgitation is moderate to severe. Then atrial fibrillation will be severe. Then stage 3, here pulmonary vasculature or tricuspid damage is seen. Tricuspid wall damage is here. This is right atrium. This is right ventricle. So this tricuspid wall is damaged and pulmonary vasculature is also damaged. This is the pulmonary artery. So here systolic pulmonary hypertension is seen, and that is more than 60 mm of mercury. But normally pulmonary artery pressure is 18 to 25 mm of mercury. This is the normal, but here it is going to more than 60 mm of mercury. And here you will find moderate to severe tricuspid regurgitation. You see the blood is flowing this is the right atrium. This is the right atrium. From right atrium, blood flows to the right ventricle. But in spite of that, it is going back in the right atrium. And some blood is going in the pulmonary artery. Because tricuspid damage is here. Tricuspid wall is damaged, so blood is coming back in the right atrium. Then we are going to stage 4. Here right ventricle damage is seen. This is the right ventricle. You see here the size was too much. Right ventricle size was this much, but here it is reduced. This is damage. So there is right ventricle damage and moderate severe right ventricular dysfunction. Here we will see by echocardiography that there is right ventricular dysfunction is seen. Now again this is a second figure. Here I will like to show you this grading of, no doubt, of the stenosis, but simultaneously the recommendation of the implantation of the aortic wall. You just see in grade 0 the maximum velocity is less than 2 meters per second. In grade 0, no cardiac damage, so maximum velocity across the wall is less than 2 meters per second. This is across the aortic wall. Then in grade 1, this is grade 1, there is LV damage. So maximum velocity will be 2 to 2.9 meter per second, and mean gradient is less than 20 millimeter of the mercury. Then we go to stage 2, there is left atrial mitral valve damage. Here maximum velocity is actually 3 to 3.9 meter per second, and mean gradient is 20 to 30 millimeter of the mercury. Then this was the stage grade 2, LA left atrial and mitral damage. So here I have shown you the maximum velocity 3 to 3.9 meter per second and mean gradient 20 to 30 mm of the mercury. And in stage 4, where RV is damaged, you will see this is optimum timing of surgery in aortic stenosis. So here the aortic wall area is less than 1 centimeter square, or aortic wall area index is less than 0.6 centimeter square per meter square, and maximum velocity is more than 4 meter per second. Again I repeat, the aortic wall area index is less than 0.6 centimeter square per meter square, and maximum velocity is more than 4 meter per second, and mean gradient is more than 40 millimeter of the mercury. So here you can see the 3 color, green, yellow and red. This green color shows, which is in the grade 3, it will show you the class 1 aortic wall replacement. Here this is the class 1 aortic wall replacement because grade 3. Then this is yellow. So in yellow you can see represent class 2nd A or 2nd B AVR indication. 2nd A and 2nd B aortic wall replacement will be in yellow, means grade 2. And red, it will be grade 3rd indication of the aortic wall replacement. Red indicates a potential class 3rd AVR indication, because there is either grade 0 or grade 1 damage. Now I want to show you indications and contraindications for TAVI. Indications. TAVI should be carried out in patients with having life expectancy more than 1 year, and they should be inoperable or should be of high risk by a cardiac surgeon. They should be likely to gain improvement in quality of life, and there should be no absolute contraindication like this. Now we go to contraindication. Now the absolute contraindication. Number 1, absence of a heart team and no cardiac surgery on site. Don't do. Then appropriateness of TAVI not confirmed by heart team. Don't do. Then the clinical contraindication. Estimated life expectancy if less than 1 year. Don't do. Improvement of quality life by TAVI unlikely because of comorbidity. Don't do. Now then, associated disease of other valves treated only by surgery. I again repeat, associated diseases of other valves treated only by surgery. Don't do this replacement. Then anatomical this contraindication. If the annulus size of the aorta is less than 18 millimeter or more than 29 mm, don't do. If thrombus in the left ventricle, don't do. If active endocarditis, don't do. If elevated risk of coronary ostium obstruction, for example, asymmetric wall calcification, short distance between annulus and coronary ostium, and small aortic sinuses, don't do. Then plaques with mobile thrombi in the ascending aorta or aortic arch, don't do. Then for transfemoral and subclavian approach, if there is inadequate vascular access, means vascular size is inaccessible, or calcification is there, more calcification and more tortuosity is there, don't do. Then what are the relative contraindications? Number one, bicuspid or non-calcified valve. Number two, coronary artery disease requiring revascularization, don't do. If hemodynamic instability, don't do. If LV ejection fraction less than 20%, don't do. And for the transapical approach, if severe pulmonary disease, don't do. LV apex is not accessible, don't do. Now the procedure of the TAVI. TAVI performed under general anesthesia or sedation. Femoral access is the preferred and most frequently used approach. Femoral access is the preferred and most frequently used approach. And if alternatively you can also do transsubclavian artery or transapical approach used in unfavorable femoral artery anatomy. The negative wall is pre-dilated by balloon valvuloplasty during rapid ventricular pacing. You have to do rapid ventricular pacing and then the negative wall is pre-dilated by balloon valvuloplasty. The transcatheter valve is deployed under angiographic or echographic guidance. Now, how to see it is successful? Successful implantation of the valve will be immediately lead to decrease in the pressure gradient across the aortic valve. I again repeat, successful implantation of the valve will immediately lead to decrease in the pressure gradient across the aortic valve. And guide wires and catheters are then withdrawn and the femoral artery is sealed surgically or by use of specific closure device. Now the complications. What are the complications of the procedure? Acute periprocedural and complications may occur. Number one, left ventricular rupture. Number two, tamponade. Number third, coronary obstruction can be fatal complication during the TAVI procedure but are unfortunately rare. Stroke can be there, vascular complications can be there, and aortic regurgitation can be there, and conduction abnormalities can be there like LBB and the high block. Then stroke is seen or transient ischemic attack is seen. Periprocedural stroke within 24 hours seen. An incidence of 1.5% after TAVI seen. Embolic causes of these cerebrovascular events are due to what? Material of native aortic root dislodged by manipulation of hardware during deployment of the transcatheter valve, and they cause the stroke. Then second, after TAVI, thrombin or platelet deposition of the prosthesis can occur and might serve as a risk for embolization. And suppose it has happened, then what to do? Sustained antiplatelet therapy. Sustained antiplatelet therapy by clopidogrel and aspirin over 3 to 6 months after TAVI is recommended. And if you see the atrial fibrillation simultaneously, then you have to go for anticoagulant. Anticoagulant by warfarin is combined with aspirin or clopidogrel in case of atrial fibrillation. Then vascular complication. Vascular access related complications occur mostly in transfemoral approach, leading to potentially serious arterial bleeding, number one, and second, increased patient mortality rate from 9.5 to 51.6%. Therefore, what to do? Evaluation of iliofemoral vasculature is done. See the tortuosity, see the calcification, and see the diameter of the aorta and the arteries. It is important to determine if femoral approach is safely possible or no. Then, so for this, smaller seats from 22 French to 18 French and smaller delivery system, decreasing the incidence of major vascular complications are used. An improved design of closure devices for sealing the access site puncture is helpful. Then the third complication, aortic regurgitation. And in around 15 to 20% of TAVI patients, moderate to severe AR of more than 2 to 4 grade occurs because of native valve is crushed. Native valve is crushed between the aortic valve and prosthesis during TAVI. This debris of calcification increasing the risk of paravalvular aortic regurgitation. Also, second point, malposition of the valve, whether if it is too high or too low under native annulus. And third, incorrect sizing of prosthesis. These all causes the aortic regurgitation. So this is incorrect size is also known as annulus prosthesis mismatch and can lead to AR after TAVI. Now, how to reduce this AR? Number one, post-balloon dilatation, means increasing expansion of the valve. Second, snaring of the valve, means adaptation of the implantation depth. Adaptation of implantation depth. Then third, implantation of a second valve, means what? Valve in valve. You put valve in valve. If these three can reduce the grade of AR. Then conduction disturbances. LVB, left abdominal valve block, and atrioventricular block necessitate permanent pacemaker implantation. LVB reported in 29 to 65% of patients implanted with Medtronic core valve and 4 to 18% with Edwards Sapien valve. High grade atrioventricular block after TAVI is more common. After what? After Medtronic core valve implantation, it will be 14 to 44%, and after Edwards Sapien, it is 0 to 12%. Now, leading to more pacemaker implantation is 18 to 49% in core valve Medtronic and 0 to 12% with Edwards Sapien valve pacemaker implantation required. Then Medtronic core valve overlap. Listen carefully. Medtronic core valve overlap left ventricular outflow tract as well as aortic sinuses. The overlap of LVT could potentially cause damage to underlying conduction tissue of the heart. The overlap of LVT could potentially cause damage to the underlying conduction tissue of the heart. Now, what is the future? The future of transcatheter aortic valve implantation. Optimal patient selection is the most challenging aspect of TAVI for high or very high risk patients. To reduce complications, what to do? Number one, you see the complications like paravalvular leakage and conduction disturbances can be reduced by using newer transcatheter valves, number one, newer guide wires, number two, newer delivery systems are designed to allow optimum deployment. Then, to expand the use of TAVI for treatment of medium risk patients. To expand the use of TAVI for treatment of medium risk patients. What to do? The experience of TAVI in high risk patients is helpful. Cardiologist who is having experience of TAVI in high risk patients, they can conduct the use of TAVI for treatment of medium risk patients. And TAVI may also be used in patients with a degenerative bioprosthesis or in patients suffering from AR. TAVI may also be used in patients with degenerative bioprosthesis or in patients suffering from aortic regurgitation. Now I am going to take you at the management of coronary artery disease in TB patient. This is performance of coronary angiography. For performance of coronary angiography, so management of coronary artery disease in TB patient for performance of coronary angiography and stenting before transcatheter aortic valve replacement from the International Section Leadership Council of the American College of Cardiology. So the Leadership Council of American College of Cardiology are doing the management of coronary artery. How? They first taking the coronary angiogram, and if they see no significant CAD, then they proceed directly to TB. And if they see significant CAD, now what do you mean by significant CAD? In this case, LAD will be blocked, proximal LAD is blocked more than 70%, and there is left main block of LAD, left main LAD is blocked more than 50%. If it is like this, then consider PCI prior to TB or at the time of TB if PCI risk is not prohibited. And if the LAD, proximal LAD is not more than 70% blocked and this left main is not blocked more than 50%, then you first see that this distal branches of the LAD and side branches of LAD, whether they are having this risk or no, they are in risk or no. If they are in the risk, then you must concern this heart team. And when heart team says you yes, then you consider PCI pre-TB. And again, if heart team denies, then what to do? Reassess CAD after TB as per appropriate use criteria. Reassess CAD after TB. ठीक है? And if access to coronary will be limited by TB, consider pre-TB PCI. Now I am going to take you again management of CAD in patient undergoing TB in other center. It was in that center what? It was in the Leadership Council of American College and Cardiology. But it is another setup in another this cath lab where heart team opinion is taken. And before TB, screening is done by this computerized tomographic angiography. CT angiography is done. And if CT angiography says that there is not significant CAD is not there, then you go directly to TB. If CT angiography says that there is significant CAD or coronary anatomy not available, then what to do? Do coronary angiography. This traditional angiography should be done. And in if traditional angiography, if you see that this stenosis in small branches is means small branches means less than 2.5 millimeter vessel and distal lesions and distal LAD and chronic total occlusion is there suppose. First stenosis is seen in less than 2.5 mm vessel in distal LAD and in chronic total obstruction. Then you can go for TB alone. And if you see that stenosis in large vessels means the proximal LAD or more than 70% in proximal LAD and more than 50% in left main, then what to do? PCI should be done at the time of TB. And simultaneously you must consider if there is severe renal impairment, then you should do PCI before TB. If severe renal impairment, do PCI before TB or complicated PCI. Lastly, I would like to tell you how to perform PCI in patients undergoing TB. Number one, supposing patient considered for TB, then first find out whether he is having unstable angina or acute coronary syndrome or no. If yes, then consider revascularization by heart team. If they yes, then do pre-TB PCI. And if say no, if there is no unstable angina or no acute coronary syndrome, then do the angiography. If the angiography says unobstructed, if there is no obstruction in this coronary artery, then straight away go to TB. And if there is more than 70% stenosis, then you see the angina, class angina. If there is Canadian Cardiovascular Society class angina, 3rd or 4th. If it is no, then go straight away to TB. If it is present, then again consult your heart team for revascularization. If they yes, then do pre-TB PCI. And after angiography, if the more than 50% left main is blocked or left main equivalent is blocked, then you must take decision from heart team for revascularization. If they say yes, then go for pre-TB PCI. In the last but not the least, I am coming to the conclusion. TB stands out as a relatively new treatment for high-risk patients with severe symptomatic aortic wall stenosis. Important complications including stroke, vascular complications, paravalvular aortic regurgitation, conduction disturbances, they may take place after TB, and so need for TB is to be considered carefully. The evolution of suitable transcatheter valves and devices will reduce the complications. Rheumatic aortic valve disease is a serious problem of younger ages and therefore very crippling. Aortic valve replacement in children, adolescents and even young adults is a very tough decision as it is high risk and expensive and needs discretion, experience and thereafter good follow-up. Therefore, prompt diagnosis, treatment and secondary prevention is a must, preferably with use of azithromycin uniformly all over the world. Azithromycin can be taken with or without food as it is a safe at all ages and even in pregnancy it is safe. Give 500 mg per day continuously, then one tab of 500 mg only once a week, that is to say every Sunday morning for 1 year only. It may be given for more than 1 year if at all there is sore throat or relapse of the disease according to discretion of the treating doctor. Every time switching over to azithromycin from different antibiotics, always start with 500 mg per day for 5 days, then follow weekly dose 500 mg once a week. Mechanical prosthesis is a reliable option for AVR in children. Pulmonary autograft also may be considered. In a small child, mechanical valves need to be replaced when child grows. A widening of the aortic root by few millimeters can allow larger size aortic valve transplant. Some surgeons prefer patch aortoplasty technique also. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I am sure that I have simplified the transcatheter aortic valve replacement and you all must have understand very easily. And now in next CME I will discuss the anticoagulation therapy in valvular diseases. Soon I am coming with the anticoagulant in valvular diseases. Thank you very much for your kind attention.